Like being of the same species, it may seem difficult to understand how emotions like words and gestures can be manifested differently. Darwin recognized the fact that gestures are not universal, but are socially learned conventions which vary accordingly to language from one place to another. Why should emotions be different? Darwin, after the mid-19th century, was first to write emotional expressions. Thanks to his observations, he came to the conclusion that there were numerous similarities between humans and animals. In fact, emotions are one of the most important points in adaptive processes, as they allow, for example, to evaluate the danger and to communicate with one's fellow men. Emotions are therefore essential to provide information and ensure the survival of the individual, assuming an extremely positive value. Emotions can be classified into primary emotions such as joy, sadness, anger, disgust, fear, and surprise. These are shared by people belonging to different cultures and therefore biologically rooted. Then there are the secondary emotions, which are complex emotions such as shame, guilt, remorse, envy, which are conditioned and shaped by experience. Socialization and the acquisition of the rules that the environment imposes are suitable ways of exhibiting emotions, cause them to lose their initial connection with psychological expressions and become more and more socially determined. Emotions can differ from one culture to another in the use of language and their expression. Languages differ in the number of words for emotions and their nuances of meaning. For example, Germans use the word Schadenfreude for that particular pleasure when learning of bad luck that has happened to an opponent. In the United States, the expression going postal indicates an attack of anger and violence that occurred in the workplace, and then more generally as a synonym for going on a rampage, an expression that derives from the fact that for over 80 years there were numerous mass shootings, the perpetrators of which were postal employees unhappy with their work. Not having a word for an emotional state can influence the emotional experience. Without terms to name feelings, it may become more difficult to distinguish and think about them. The very interesting work on emotions is the Book of Human Emotions, written by the cultural historian Tiffany Watt Scott, who through history, anthropology, science, art, literature, and music has searched for expressions which cultures around the world have learned to define. But how can we recognize the emotions expressed by people belonging to other cultures? In research conducted in the early 1970s, psychologists Erkman and Friesen studied the facial expressions of US and Japanese students as they watched footage of violence and killings. The students watched the videos under two different conditions, alone or in the presence of an experimenter belonging to the same culture as the participants. During the course of the experiment, Ekman and Friesen monitored the facial expressions of the subjects and observed that while watching the videos alone, the students exhibited facial expressions of negative emotions, disgust, anger, sadness, while when in the company of the experimenter, cultural differences seemed to emerge. American students still displayed negative expressions through their faces, while Japanese students showed much less negative emotions, and sometimes smiling to mask those emotions. It therefore seems very difficult to decipher the emotions expressed by people belonging to other cultures if they do not know them in depth, and that is why we must always proceed with caution in relation with them in order not to fall into prejudice or create tensions. Even if the expressions are universal, it seems that culture determines whether and to what extent the person relates to feelings or the event. Our evolution provides us with universal expressions which tell others some important information about what we are experiencing. However, what that expression tells us may not be the same in every culture. Congratulations for completing this short lesson, which gave a brief introduction to the emotions. If you would like to learn more about performance, or if you are interested in accessing additional resources in the 3Ps program, please visit the resource library